Hi, welcome back to the Distressed Princess. Here are the DIYs I'm working on today. And these DIYs are inspired by this material that I found at the Dollar Tree, and it goes perfectly with my Pioneer Woman decor that I have in my kitchen. So the first thing I made was using this basket that is from the Dollar Tree. It's the smaller one. I have a larger size one too. And I couldn't find a white one in the store, so I'm just going to use my Rust-Oleum chalk paint in white to paint this basket. And I only did one coat and only on the outside. Now I'm going to make a liner for this basket out of this pretty material. And so the first thing I needed to do was kind of figure out how big a piece of material this was and how much to use if I needed to cut any off. Then I needed to make sure that the basket was completely centered on the piece of material. Then I measured the side of the basket, which was 4 inches, so I knew I needed at least 4 inches to come out from each side of the basket. But I also wanted to add 1 inch for a nice gathered ruffle, which worked out great because I only have 5 inches on the short sides. Then I used my ruler to draw a line 5 inches out from the sides of each side. And then just cut the excess off. Then when I did a test fitting inside of the basket, and of course because I was winging this, I actually came out with more material to work with than I thought, so I was able to do a 2-inch gather around the sides. So I flipped the material over so my marks would be on the non-printed side, and I measured out 2 inches around the entire piece and drew a line 2 inches around the whole piece of material. Now get your needle and thread ready, and I didn't have any white thread, so I'm using red, and we're going to sew in the gather, which is really easy. And please don't come at me because I am not a sewer by nature. This is just a simple little gather that my mom taught me when we used to make Barbie doll clothes. So it's really easy. You just sew in and out, and then at the end when you pull the thread, it will make a gather. So when I got done sewing on that line, I placed the material back onto the basket to make sure it would gather the way that I wanted it to. So like I said, just pull the thread and your material will do the gathering. And so I made it gather to the whole length of that basket. Then when I was satisfied with the gathers, I went ahead and ended that piece of thread by doing the knot thing. I'm sure there's terms for all of the sewing. I'm sorry, I don't know them, but you just do the little double knot thing to end that piece of thread and cut it off. And then I started a new piece of thread for each side. After each line that I sewed, I took it back to the basket and pulled the thread to make my gathers. When all the sewing was done and I put the liner inside of the basket, then I wanted to make it permanent. So I used my hot glue gun to glue it all around the outside edge. And if you don't want to sew around this whole thing, you could definitely just hot glue those gathers down. Just bunch up your material and skip all the sewing and hot glue this to the basket, which I did think about doing, but it had been a long time since I even tried to sew anything, and I just kind of wanted to challenge myself. And the last thing was these pointy corners, which I rounded off. And if this isn't a Pioneer Woman kitchen, then I don't know what is. For the next DIY, I'm using this picture that came from the Dollar Tree, and I love the print in this picture. So when I take this apart, I am going to keep that because I bet you I use it in a DIY somewhere down the road. I chose this picture to use because it is a square picture and it does have a glass front. But I'm going to be working with the backing of the picture, and I'm going to cover it with another piece of that pretty Pioneer Woman looking material from the Dollar Tree. So I cut a piece of the material just a little bit larger than the size of the backing because I want to be able to wrap it around the back. And I used white duct tape to secure it all around the edge. Next, I'm going to use one of the doilies from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out the center flower, and that's going to be the center decoration for this piece. And then I thought it would be cute to use the scalloped edges of the doily to go in the corners. Now what you see here is the end of the process. I'm hot gluing these pieces down, but that is not the first method I tried. The first thing I tried was the spray adhesive that you get at the Dollar Tree, and that did not work. The second thing I tried was Mod Podge, and that did not work. So after trying to dry this all from the wet Mod Podge and the spray adhesive, my last resort was to hot glue, and learn from my mistakes. Just go ahead and use the hot glue very first thing. And then go back and cut off the edges of the doilies that's hanging off the sides. And now the piece is ready to go back in its frame, all snug and secure. I didn't have any problems getting this to fit back in. I worried that I might with this being all covered, but it was no trouble at all, and this DIY is done. For the next DIY, I'm using this refrigerator bottle that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I was so tickled to find this thing because I had been wanting some of these and I was going to go to Target to look for them, but there they were at the Dollar Tree. Now they're not glass, they're just plastic, but that didn't bother me. I'm going to decorate this up to be so cute, just like my other Pioneer Woman pieces. And so the first thing is to, of course, wash the bottle inside and out and everything. Make sure it's good and clean. And then, of course, really good and dry. Then I'm going to use these craft paints. And I have Laguna, I think is the color of this teal. And then I think the red is apple red. And then just plain white. Then I used the back end of a paintbrush to draw 5 little dots that would be a flower, and I do the teal ones and then I do red ones, and I use the white for a little dot in the center. Now at first I didn't have any certain particular pattern going, but then by the end of my painting I've got a good little pattern, and I only go halfway up the bottle, but you make it yours. If you want them all over your bottle, if you want them in a pattern, or if you don't, or if you even want to do something else entirely, this is just an idea. Because I'm going to use my bottle actually for functional purposes instead of just decoration this time, I'm going to seal it with the dishwasher safe Mod Podge. And the directions on that stuff says to do 2 to 3 coats, letting it dry 1 to 2 hours between each coat. Now, did I follow that to a T? Well, sort of. I did 1 coat and I dried it with my hair dryer. Instead of waiting the 1 to 2 hours, I just dried it really good with my hair dryer, and then I did a second coat and dried it again with my hair dryer because I'm so impatient. But if I weren't under time restrictions and I really wanted to do this right, I would follow the instructions and wait the 2 hours, I suppose. But I think it's so pretty, and I'm using it to hold my sweet tea. And then the last DIY is a really simple one. It's using this metal spoon rest that I got at the Dollar Tree. I painted it with my Rust-Oleum chalk paint in linen white, and it took 3 coats for good coverage on this slick metal spoon. Then I used that same teal blue Laguna color to go around the edges of the spoon like enamelware. and I contemplated putting some polka dots or some stripes or something on there too, but by the time I got all around the edge with that pretty teal color, I just kind of liked it plain. Then I dried it really well with my hair dryer and added some more of the dishwasher safe Mod Podge because I'm actually going to use this spoon rest on my stove. And bonus, that Mod Podge, the dishwasher safe Mod Podge, is gloss, so you get a shiny look in the end instead of the chalky, which is better. And here's a look again at everything we did today. I hope you enjoyed my video today. I will be back again with some more DIYs come next Tuesday, and I'll see you then. Bye.